Where is that joint? There it is. All right, so let's go and open that up. And so you'll see that we have the skinning joint chain going right here, shoulder, elbow, wrist, and then we have the other ones, IK and FK down here. I need to go ahead and add an IK handle from shoulder to wrist. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go over to skeleton, create IK handle, rotate plane solver, since we're going to be controlling that elbow in the same way we did the knee with that pivot constraint. So I'm going to go ahead and grab, it's a little bit tough to grab it here. So I'm going to go ahead and go into shoulder and then hold down control and then click on the wrist. And then you'll see that IK handle pop up in here. You'll be able to move that around. I'm going to do the same thing here over on the other side. So again, IK, hold down control on the shoulder, go to wrist, and now we have another IK handle, okay? So we have two new IK handles. I'm gonna go and name the first one, left wrist IK handle, right wrist IK handle for the other one. Kind of straightforward, right? All right, let's go to rigging. I'm gonna go ahead and fire up my Rig 101 wire controllers. And I wanna get some circle controls. I'm gonna go ahead and snap one up to that shoulder. Let's rotate it 90 degrees. And let's see how, yeah, I need to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, something like that. And then Control D, bring it over there, Control D, bring it over to the wrist. And I think that's a little bit big for the wrist. Bring it down, bring that down. So just kind of where it fits the geometry. And I think that'll work. Okay. Let's go and grab all three of these. Go to Modify, Freeze Transformations. And then let's go under Edit, Delete by Type, History. And then we'll go ahead and name them. So this one's going to be left FK shoulder con. Left FK elbow con. Left FK wrist con. And then we'll go and take the wrist, put it underneath the elbow, take the elbow, put it underneath the shoulder, and there we go. All right, one more that we're gonna need is going to be a clavicle controller. So I wanna go ahead and take let's do a 180-degree arc. Turn that off. I'm gonna pop this over to the clavicle joint right here. And then let's see, that's really like deep into the geometry. So what if I just made it bigger? There we go. Yeah, that kind of works. Sometimes I kind of just go in and like reshape this stuff, but I think that works all right. All right, that'll be fine. All right, let's freeze transformations. And then delete by type, history. Left, clav, con. And then the left shoulder con is going to go under the left clav con. So then all of this moves together. And if we grab each one of the controllers, they should move as an FK chain. You guys see what we're doing? So what I like whenever I'm rigging is I like to make motions as simple as possible. So for me, one of them is if I have a character in a T-pose, I want to be able to make his arms go down as easy as possible. I want to make his arms go up. I want to make his arms go across his body as easy as possible. So here, all of my controllers have kind of unified axes for their directions. And so if I grab, let's say, multiple controllers and then rotate them based on the y-axis, it's going to bring that arm across the body. Okay, makes it just a little bit easier. If I grab multiple controllers and let's say to move the shoulder across, it's the y-axis. To move the elbow across, it's the z-axis. To move the wrist across, it's the x-axis. So you'll end up having like your arm doing this, which is going to be weird. So let's just simplify it, make it easy. So duplicating these controllers helps doing that. We can just have the stuff just go straight across and it makes it super easy. Yeah. Okay. Let's go and throw in a color on here. So bright green for that one. Do another one here. We'll do a yellow. I'm gonna do a yellow for like all three of these. Okay. And then I need to make a controller that's going to fit on the wrist, and that's going to be for the IK handle. And that, I just need something that's going to look different. I kind of like using the discs or the rings for like kind of rotational movement. To me, it just makes sense, I guess. For something that's a little more free, I might use something that has like multiple axes built into it. So I kind of like the prisms here, where you can do like a sphere or a cube or, you know, something. So like I'll grab, let's say, this sphere right here. Let's turn that geometry layer off. And I'll also snap that to the wrist. And I'll make that one, make it a little bit bigger. Maybe not that big, maybe something kind of like that, okay? So I can kind of grab that from like any direction and move it around. I'm gonna call that left IK wrist con. And then I'll go ahead and go to modify freeze transformations, so it's all zeroed out. Edit, delete by type, history. Okay. I need another controller. I'm gonna grab this little cog. I'm actually gonna snap that over to the null joint. I'm gonna move it back, and this thing can just live right here. You can turn it up if you want to, leave it flat, whatever. This is gonna be my IK-FK switch. This one is just gonna have like a little attribute in here, kind of similar to what we did for the feet. It's just gonna be like 0 to 1, and that's gonna drive that switch between the IK system and the FK system. freeze transformations, delete history. And then since I have an IK controller for the wrist, if I'm using IK with a rotate solver, I need something to control the elbow, right? So let's go ahead and make a elbow controller. So let's do single fin. Okay, so I deleted history and froze it. It's actually, yeah, no, that's fine. Position's fine. All right, I'm gonna call that left IK elbow con. I'm making sure to put IK in there so I don't confuse that with an FK elbow control. Okay, and then that wrist control, I need something that stands out from the, yeah, red stands out. Something that stands out from the FK. And then since that's also gonna be part of the IK system, I'll go and do another red. So these guys are visually linked for me. Okay, any questions so far? How are we feeling? So far, this should feel familiar. We did this last week, we did this the week before, right? So we've done the IK, we set up those controllers last week. That's kind of what we're just doing with the toes last week. We're applying to the elbow or the shoulder, elbow, wrist, FK joints. We did a foot control that's similar to the wrist controller. We also made a knee controller last week. So again, these are all very similar, right? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and grab all of this. I'm gonna group it. I'm gonna go to Edit, Duplicate Special, and I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over. So I'll have my other side ready to go when I get done with this side. Now, if you wanted to wait and like do your finger controls, like you could go ahead and do that too and then flip it over. That would probably save you some time, but you could also just group this and flip it over too. So whatever you guys want to do. All right. Yeah, let's go and put a couple of finger controls in here. Make sure we're not getting too fat fingered with the control. All right, that looks good. Now this is splayed a little bit, so I will need to do that offset group. You guys remember that from doing the toes? Yeah, so same idea. So these offset groups, because my fingers are splayed out, they're not just going straight down the chain. So what I want to do, I'm gonna go and call this left index finger con 1. Let me go ahead and freeze transformations, delete by type, history. I'm gonna group it to itself. And then center pivot. I'm gonna drop into a top view, and I want to line up that axis right there. Make sure I have that group selected, not the controller. So index finger offset group 1. Okay, so that's carrying that rotational value, not the controller. I'm gonna duplicate that one, move it down, duplicate it again, move it down again. Okay, and let's see if that lines up. Looks like it's pretty good. So index offset group 3, 2, those are good, but the actual controllers are not going to change their names. So let's go ahead and change that for these. Okay. All right, so we'll take the index finger offset group 2. That needs to be sandwiched under the first index finger con 1. I'll drop that under here, open that back up. I'll take the index finger offset group 3, drop that under left index finger con 2. So again, we are having this kind of stair-step repetition of offset group. The child of that is going to be a controller. Next one is an offset group. Next one's a controller. Next one's an offset group. Next one's a controller. Okay? There's no siblings. It's all just parent, child, parent, child, parent, child, parent, child. Okay? It just happens to be we're kind of Oreo layering offset groups to controllers. Okay? All right, cool. There it is. So I'm making sure that's perfectly lined up. And then I'm going to grab the offset group for this one because it needs to be adjusted. Bring that back. Okay, those are good. Okay, that's good. And that one feels pretty good. Maybe adjust this a hair. Make sure it's not, and make sure it's snapped on. Again, I'm grabbing the groups, not the controllers. So I'll grab a controller and I'll hit like up to go straight up to the group. But I'm not manipulating the controllers. I think that works. Then you'll need to rename each one of these. So we could just go in and say, hey, I want to do a search and replace for all of this, and what would be the next name for the finger? So we have index.
Thumb, index, middle, ring.
Yeah, so for him, it would be index, middle, pinky. Yeah, he's got no ring finger. So we'll search for index, replace with middle. And it should hit all of these as long as index is spelled the same. Boom. And then we'll do the same thing for this one. And then search for middle, replace with pinky. Oh, nope, index. Okay. There we go. All right, so that works. Then you'll do the same thing for the thumb. Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start kind of connecting up these controllers. So let's grab this guy. I don't need this to be in a group anymore. I can take that out. Same idea. You'll take the offset groups, attach them to here, and just put them right down the chain. Take those out, get rid of that group. Okay, left clavicle. So that guy is going to be connected to the clavicle joint. That is going to be a orient constraint. Maintain offset turned on. Click apply. The left FK shoulder control, that is going to be connected to the left shoulder FK joint. This one right here. And then that will be a orient constraint. And then same thing again for the FK elbow joint, orient constraint. And then the FK wrist. There we go. So we have our orient constraints that are kind of popping in here. All right, let's test them real quick. So I'll grab all of these. Say it's working. And then the clavicle. Moving everything with it. Okay, so that's good. All right, so we'll need to go ahead and take the IK left wrist controller. That is going to go down to the left wrist IK handle. And that is going to be a point constraint. We have not used this before. Point constraints only control the translations. Does not control rotations, does not control scale, which is good because the only thing you can do with an IK is essentially translate it. There's no rotation value to it. So that's all it is. So we'll go put a point constraint, apply. And then what I want to do is I do want to be able to like rotate the wrist, but I need to pick the IK left wrist joint. So let's go and go over to IK shoulder joint right. Nope. There it is right here. IK rest joint left. So it's going to be the little joint in here. So I need that to control the rotation. So what constraint would I use? I don't want to control translation. I don't need to control scale. Correct. Good job. Maintain offsets turned on. Good. Okay. So what that's going to do is that allows us to pick this up, move it around, see how this is now following. And then if I rotate this, it's rotating that joint right there. Okay? All right, you guys with me? Okay.